Hi, everybody. I'm Debbie Belaus with Feel Good Qigong, and I'm going to talk to you today about fat and fat, especially in our bones. I teach Qigong, and it is a Chinese tradition. It's based on traditional Chinese medicine. And I'm always looking for, and I work with an aging population because I'm aging and I'm fascinated about the aging body and how we can repair our body, restore our body so we can live to a very ripe old age, but feeling healthy and vibrant and strong. And I compare it to when I'm researching things, when I'm learning, I look at the younger body and how it ages and what we lose and how we could regain it, what the body's physically doing. So when I come across these aha moments, and I always like to share them because it really changes my trajectory of how I look at my body and how I take care of it. So when I found out that we actually have fat in our bones, that was like, what? We have fat in our bones too? Like, okay, I'm getting fat, visceral fat in my body as I'm aging, and I know that's not really that healthy, but I didn't realize that we also have it in our bones. Now, this fat that develops in the bones could be something that is from osteoporosis. Now, osteoporosis is a bone loss, and it happens very gradually, and it doesn't have to. That's the thing. If we can get it before it gets really bad, before we actually have osteoporosis, that would be a good thing. So that's why I wanted to talk about what this is all about. So we have bones, and everybody knows what their bones are. We have something what's called bone marrow. Bone marrow is stem cells. We have stem cells throughout our whole body, and we have stem cells in our bone marrow. Those stem cells ultimately turn into blood cells. Usually it's the red blood cells that the stem cells turn into, which the red blood cells help deliver oxygen throughout our whole body. So it's really important that this bone marrow is healthy because it brings oxygen through our whole entire system. The white blood cells that also produces in the bone marrow, which fights pathogens in the blood in our body. So we need that for our immune system. We need those two blood cells, red and white blood cells, to stay healthy. What happens is this rich red blood cells that we have when we're young, it gradually decreases with age, and it starts to be replaced by yellow blood cells. So you could see that the decline is happening. If we are not keeping strong bones, and this is the problem as we age, we stop maybe moving as much as we did when we were young. When we were young, we're probably hopefully now these days, kids are not moving around as much, or teenagers as much. They're sitting a lot, they're gaming a lot. So, we got to be careful with this younger generation as well, that they don't start feeling, having these bone issues. But to get back to that, they are moving more than we are as aging population. Now that's the importance of exercising, moving the body in ways that heals and restores the body as we're aging. Too much exercise, the wrong kind of exercise, can actually create some damage. So that's another issue that I'm going to talk about, and this is why I love Qigong so much, because it's a very low impact, very beneficial way of moving. Exercise can improve the bone's thickness. So what happens is, as you're losing bone density, it starts to whittle away, the bone starts to whittle away, and the fat starts to replace that space. We start to have fat in that bone marrow because the bones starting to whittle away. And that could be because we aren't moving enough. We're not putting some loads on our bones to increase the bone density. So we need to stimulate. The cells get lazy. Those stem cells I talked about, they do get lazy. So we need to wake them up. We need to stimulate them, circulate to get that bone density again, to get that fat out of the bone as we create more bone density. And I want to talk about how we can do that by, they're finding a lot of studies that low vibration can help with creating some bone density. And there's all kinds of machines out now. They're called power mats, where you stand on them and there's this low vibration happening, and it vibrates through your whole body, and that vibration helps to stimulate bone cells. And so I found that interesting, because in qigong we do a lot of shaking, we do a lot of tapping, because we're stimulating the system. And also by the tapping and the shaking is also creating what's called osteoplasting. So it's helping to regenerate the bones. So I want to show you that shaking, because these machines, these power mats are very expensive. But if we do a little bit, instead of thinking that you have to do this for an hour a day, this is a very short routine, and it's actually best to do in little segments, like maybe do 5 minutes in the morning, do 5 minutes in the afternoon, just to stimulate the system, to stimulate that bone density, to get that fat out of the bone marrow, so we can have a healthy bone marrow, again, which helps with your red and white blood cells, to help move oxygen through the system, and also to help fight, the white blood cells help to fight pathogens. They're finding the same thing with the thymus gland. So the thymus gland is very similar, and I talk about the thymus gland a lot. It's a gland, and it shrinks as we age, and it makes white blood cells to help fight off pathogens, viruses, all things like that. So if you're not stimulating the thymus gland, then your immune system starts to break down. Again, very similar to what's happening with the bone. So we do a lot of tapping of the thymus gland as well, to get it stimulated, to get it circulated. So this is one little practice that maybe you can add into your routine during the day to help keep your bones not only strong, but also not having that fat deposit build up and take over your bones. Okay, so we'll get started. We're going to come to standing. And I do this movement so much, but I'm going to show you again and talk about what the benefits are. So I've been talking about creating a posture that really supports your skeletal system. You can look at some of my other videos about how to do that, but we're going to start with that correct posture that helps to we're kind of like a tower. You want to stack each bone on top of each other. You're rooting down and you're lengthening up to get this elongating of the spine as well. So we don't want to feel like we're collapsed here. We want to feel all the bones in alignment. We're going to go, it's called shaking the 9 gates. So I was talking about that low impact vibration that helps with osteoplasting the bones. It helps to stimulate that bone production and to start moving out the fat tissue in that bone marrow. We don't want to fill up that bone marrow, replacing it with fat tissue. It's not a good plan. So we're just going to start by shaking. It's called shaking the 9 gates in this practice of qigong. And it's called shaking the 9 gates because the 9 gates are your major joints, your wrist and your elbows, your shoulders, your neck, your hips and your knees and your ankles. Those are your major joints, and we want to stimulate the joints. And by stimulating the joints, we're moving the stagnation out of the body. If you don't move very much, you're going to start getting stagnant. So this is a quick way to really get some of that movement going. Not only, to get your fluids moving, to get your respiratory system moving, to get your circulatory system moving, to bring heat to the surface of the skin, to get your bones starting to vibrate a little bit, to help break down some of that osteoblasting. It's called osteoblasting the bones to make them stronger. Now, also other ways, and we're jumping a little bit on the heels if you can. If you can't, that's fine. Do what you can, but get a little bit of shaking in the body. Now, you wouldn't excessively shake because that wouldn't be good. So we're just finding a moderate shaking in the body. Now, this is also loosening up, like I said, the joints, getting some of that energy moving through the system, unblocking the compression that we might have in our body. So the whole idea in this practice in qigong is moving the energy through form, moving energy through form. We are form. There's energy all around us, inside of us. We want to move it. We want to circulate. We want to tap into that very rich source of energy. And we could do it by these very low low impact movements. And now the added bonus is talking about bone density, and this will help with bone density. Now we talk about breathing, which also helps to stimulate the system. I'm not going to really talk about it too much today. I have that information on a lot of my other videos. But knowing that this little bit of shaking, especially if you've been sitting all day, is really going to activate your body. It's going to stimulate your body, and that's what we want. Those stem cells get lazy if you don't use them. You know that saying, if you don't, you lose it. If you don't move it, you're going to lose it. Very true. So just think of this as stimulating your body, circulating your body, creating an osteoblasting. This little low vibration impact can go a long way. Try to do it every day. That's the trick here. You want to do something every day in stimulating your body. And this is a very quick way to stimulate your body by shaking the 9 gates. And now from here, we'll stop. Now you might feel some tingling in the body. That's a good indication you've got some good circulation going, stimulation, you've activated the body. Now we're going to go into tapping. Now the tapping is also going to stimulate our body. It's going to activate the body again. And it's also, the tapping will create that osteoblasting as well. Now we're going to start right with the thymus gland, that gland I was telling you about. That's very similar to what happens to the bones, the fat in the bones. The thymus gland will start to shrivel up as we age if we're not stimulating or activating it, moving around, and that's going to shorten that thymus gland. It's going to stop producing those white blood cells that we definitely need for our immune system. So if your thymus gland is shrinking and you're not producing enough white blood cells, and now you've got fat in the bone marrow, which is taking up the bone, you don't have as many white blood cells being produced. It's a recipe for a very low immune system. And one of the things of aging, I was saying, what we have when we were younger, we lose when we're older, we can regain back this stuff, but it does take some understanding of what we're doing and why we're doing it. So this is for our immune system, the thymus gland, tapping that thymus gland. And we're just making a little bird's peak. It's called a bird's nest with their, we're not pounding here, we're just stimulating. And if this hurts in any sort of way, you don't have to tap. You can also rub. That's another way that you can stimulate that area. Now we're going to run along that clavicle bone. There's that bone, osteoblasting. And you might feel some vibration. Again, this is a low impact vibration. And then you're going to come right down the inside of the arm. So we're also bringing heat to the surface of the skin, which is really healthy for the skin. It's the largest organ of your body. Let's clap our hands, again, stimulating, activating. And then we're going to tap or tap with your bird's nest or with your hands. It's also called cupping. And we're going to cup or tap all the way up the outside of the arm to the back of the shoulder. And then I like to add some tapping around the breast tissue. And then we're going to tap under the armpit and down the side of our ribs, the bones of the ribs, the rib cage here, tapping lightly. And then we'll come to the other side, tapping that thymus gland again, coming to that little area past follow that clavicle bone right to your arm, and then tapping or cupping the inside of the arm. So we're doing a little bit of osteoblasting for the bones. We're also stimulating our system, again, activating the system, waking it up. So this is something that you can do. Try to do this every day to keep that body stimulated and active. And now we're going to tap the entire trunk region all the way to the hip bones. Largest bones of the body are your femur and your hip bones. And then we're going to tap a little bit more here at the hip bones here, the side of the hip. This is the femur, I'm sorry, the top of the femur and the hip bones. And we're going to tap right down the side of the legs, side of the knee, all the way down to the foot. And then we'll come in the inside of the leg, tapping on the inside, again, all around this region of the femur and the hip bone, all the way to the back, to the glutes. And then we tap down the backs of the legs. So this is called tapping, and we're going to come up the legs again. We're stimulating, activating. It's super easy. You can tap and slap here in the groin area. It's so easy to do. Just try to get used to doing this more on a daily basis, knowing that you are giving yourself this gift of health and stimulation and activation. And then let's lift this energy up that we've just produced in our body, bending the knees and coming to a little bit of a squat. So again, you know, another way of keeping your bones healthy is through some low impact vibration. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you again. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to my channel, and I try to send something out at least once a week for you. Thank you again, and namaste to all.